Someone in your life has probably already told you about it. A coworker, a wellness account you follow, your aunt who swears by natural remedies and has opinions about everything you eat. Garlic milk. First thing in the morning, empty stomach. They said it was good for digestion, good for immunity, good for your heart. Ancient remedy. Grandmothers used it for generations. You can't argue with grandmothers, so you tried it. Or you're thinking about trying it. Or someone you care about has been doing it for months, and you're quietly not sure whether to be supportive or concerned. Here's what nobody in the wellness space ever fully explains about garlic milk. It's not that it's wrong. It's not that garlic is bad or that warm milk is dangerous. It's that this particular combination, at this particular time, in this particular way, does something inside your body that depends entirely on which body it's happening to, and the wellness trend never bothered to explain the variable. Complicated things turned into rigid daily habits without understanding what they're actually doing have a way of creating problems that look a lot like the problems they were supposed to solve. And by the time you notice, you've been telling yourself it's working for so long that the evidence against it doesn't look like evidence. It looks like something else. This is the story of 3 people who started their mornings the same way, with the best intentions, with a genuine desire to take better care of themselves, and with very different outcomes depending on what they paid attention to and what they refused to. Margaret, the woman who trusted the trend. Margaret was 61 years old and lived in Sacramento, California. She had a garden in her backyard that she tended every Saturday morning before the heat arrived. She brewed her own kombucha in the kitchen, kept a collection of herbal teas organized by health benefit, and read wellness literature with genuine seriousness and an open mind. She was not someone who followed trends blindly. She was someone who thought carefully about what she put into her body and made intentional choices about her health. Which is why it made complete sense to her when her neighbor Gloria mentioned garlic milk. Gloria was 70 and looked 60. She had good energy, rarely got sick, and had the kind of unshakable morning routine that Margaret had always quietly admired. When Gloria told her she had been drinking warm garlic milk every morning for 2 years and attributed much of her well-being to that habit, Margaret listened with the same seriousness she applied to everything health-related. She went home and researched it. She found the historical use of garlic in traditional medicine across multiple cultures. She found studies on allicin's antimicrobial properties. She found testimonials from people who swore it had transformed their digestion and their immunity. The evidence, at least the evidence that appeared in wellness articles, was consistent and positive. She started the following Monday. The recipe was simple. 1 clove of raw garlic, blended into a cup of warm milk, drunk first thing in the morning before eating anything else. Margaret prepared it carefully. She stood at her kitchen counter with a glass in her hand and took the first sip. The taste was intense in a way she hadn't fully anticipated. Warm and pungent and strongly garlicky in a way that hit the back of her throat before it hit her stomach. She finished the glass. She stood for a moment. A heat settled into her abdomen and then gradually dispersed. She told herself that was the garlic doing something useful. The first week she got used to the taste. By the end of the second week, she had stopped noticing it much at all. She felt good about the habit. She told 2 friends about it. She was the kind of person who shared things that worked. But something had started happening that she wasn't fully registering yet. Around the 4th week, she noticed that her mornings felt heavier than they used to. A low-level bloating that arrived about 40 minutes after the garlic milk and settled in her upper abdomen through most of the morning. She assumed it was her digestive system adjusting. Natural remedies often required an adjustment period, she knew that. She kept going. Week 6 brought something she couldn't as easily explain away. The bloating had become consistent enough that she started eating lighter breakfasts to try to manage it. She had been a big breakfast person her whole life. Eggs, toast, fruit, the kind of morning meal that set her up for the day. Now she was eating half of what she used to, and still feeling heavier by 9 in the morning than she used to feel by noon. She bought digestive enzymes at the health food store. She took them with lunch because the heaviness made large midday meals uncomfortable. She had started skipping her morning walk 3 mornings a week because the bloating made moving feel effortful in a way she didn't like. At week 8, she sat at her kitchen table on a Tuesday morning and made a list of everything that had changed since January. When she looked at the list, she felt a mild alarm she quickly suppressed. The list was long. The changes were all in the wrong direction. And every single one of them had started within weeks of beginning a habit she had started specifically because it was supposed to make her feel better. She still didn't put the garlic milk on the list of suspects. She started researching whether there was something else going on. A seasonal issue, a hormonal shift. Something age-related. Something she could fix with another supplement. The garlic milk sat in its blender cup every morning, doing what it had always been doing, while Margaret looked everywhere else for an explanation. What is actually happening inside your stomach at 7 a.m. here is what the wellness articles left out. When you wake up in the morning, your stomach has been empty for 7 to 9 hours. Empty does not mean calm. Your stomach produces hydrochloric acid continuously, at lower levels than during active digestion, but consistently, because maintaining an acidic environment is the stomach's baseline state. By the time your alarm goes off, that acid has been accumulating for hours in a space with nothing to dilute it and nothing to process. This is why many people experience mild nausea and unpleasant taste or general queasiness on an empty stomach in the morning. The stomach is already in a mildly hostile state before the day has started. The mucus layer protecting the stomach lining is doing its job, but it is doing that job against an environment that has been building for hours. When you drink garlic milk into this environment, you are introducing 2 biologically active substances at the same time in combination to a system that is already working harder than it does mid-afternoon. Garlic contains allicin. Allicin is produced the moment garlic is crushed or blended. The mechanical action breaks down the cell walls and triggers a reaction between allicin and alliinase, 2 compounds that were previously kept separate. Allicin is the reason garlic has antimicrobial properties. It is also the reason garlic burns. The plant produces it specifically to repel biological threats. It is chemically aggressive in a way that is useful against pathogens and irritating to sensitive tissue. On an empty stomach, with no food present to dilute it or absorb it, allicin lands on your stomach lining at full concentration. Your stomach lining responds by triggering acid production. It detects an intense biological compound arriving and prepares to process it. But there is nothing to process. The elevated acid has nowhere to go except against the tissue it normally protects. The mucus layer, already managing the overnight acid accumulation, now faces both that elevated acid and the direct chemical contact of concentrated allicin at the same time. Milk complicates this further. Milk is mildly alkaline, which means it temporarily neutralizes some of the stomach acid present. This sounds helpful. It is not as helpful as it sounds. When stomach acid is neutralized, the stomach interprets this as a signal to produce more acid to return to its required pH level. This is called the milk alkali rebound effect. The acid that was neutralized by the milk comes back in a larger wave 20 to 30 minutes later. For people with any degree of gastric sensitivity, this rebound can produce exactly the kind of mid-morning bloating, heaviness, and upper abdominal discomfort that Margaret was experiencing every day without understanding why. The garlic provokes the stomach. The milk triggers a rebound. Together on an empty stomach at 7 in the morning, they create a digestive event that many bodies are simply not positioned to absorb cleanly before the day has started. For a 25-year-old with a robust digestive system and no underlying sensitivity, this event may produce only minor and temporary discomfort. For a 61-year-old with any degree of natural gastric sensitivity, which increases with age, the daily repetition of this event compounds in exactly the way Margaret's symptoms had compounded, not dramatically. Not in a way that announces itself as a single cause. just steadily, quietly, one morning at a time. James, the man who pushed through because he thought that meant it was working. James was 53 years old and lived in Atlanta, Georgia. He coached youth basketball at the community center 3 evenings a week and ran a small landscaping business the rest of the time. He was active, practical, and deeply skeptical of anything that felt too easy. In his experience, things that were genuinely good for you required effort. Cold showers required effort. Intermittent fasting required effort. Getting up at 5 to work out before the rest of the world woke up required effort. He respected all of these things precisely because they were hard. When he came across garlic milk in a health forum he frequented, he read the thread carefully. There were people who said it was uncomfortable at first. He noted that as a positive sign. Discomfort meant something real was happening. He started the habit on a Monday with the specific intention of giving it 60 days of honest effort before drawing any conclusions. The first 10 days were rough in ways he had anticipated and accepted. The taste was aggressive. His stomach in the mornings felt unsettled in a way that sometimes bordered on nausea. He pushed through it the same way he pushed through the first 2 weeks of cold showers, with the understanding that the discomfort was temporary and the benefit was on the other side of it. By week 3, the nausea had reduced. He counted this as adaptation. He was right that something had changed. He was wrong about what had changed. What he hadn't noticed was that his digestive system had become more reactive in the afternoons. He was dealing with gas in a way he hadn't been before, not severe, but consistent, arriving most afternoons around 2 or 3 and lasting into the evening. He attributed it to the protein powder he had started using around the same time and briefly switched brands. The gas didn't change. His appetite had shifted in a direction he couldn't fully explain. He was less hungry at mealtimes than he had always been, which he initially interpreted as the garlic suppressing appetite in a useful way. But he was eating less and still feeling heavier. His meals sat differently in his stomach than they used to. Dinner, which he had always enjoyed, had started feeling like something he needed to manage rather than something he looked forward to. His energy in the late morning had dropped. He was adding a 3rd cup of coffee to get through 11 o'clock, something he hadn't needed for years. He attributed this to a tough season at work and the increased activity from coaching. At 60 days, he evaluated honestly. His immunity felt better. He hadn't had a cold, which he attributed to the garlic. Everything else felt worse, which he attributed to age, stress, the protein powder, the long hours, everything except the one variable he had added to his morning 60 days ago. He decided to continue. At month 4, his wife Linda noticed something while they were getting ready for bed. She asked him why the antacids had moved from the medicine cabinet to the nightstand. He told her it was just easier to have them close by. She looked at him for a long moment and asked when exactly he had started needing antacids within reach at bedtime. He thought about it. He couldn't remember exactly. A few months. Since around the time he started the new morning routine. He stopped the garlic milk 2 weeks after that conversation. He framed it as an experiment. He would stop for a month and see whether anything changed. He told himself he was being scientific about it. The afternoon gas reduced within 10 days. His morning appetite returned within 3 weeks. The antacids went back to the medicine cabinet within the month. He slept through 3 consecutive nights without the low burning sensation in his chest that he had started accepting as just part of being 53. He had pushed through discomfort for 4 months under the assumption that discomfort meant progress. The discomfort had not been progress. It had been his stomach trying to tell him something he wasn't listening to, because he had decided in advance that not listening was what discipline looked like. The difference between adapting and suffering here is the question nobody asks clearly enough about health habits that cause discomfort. How do you know whether what you're feeling is your body adjusting to something new and beneficial, or your body telling you that something is working against it? The answer matters enormously and is rarely simple. Both adaptation and harm can produce discomfort in the early stages of a new habit. Both can feel similar from the inside. The difference is in what happens over time. Adaptation discomfort follows a curve. It peaks in the first week or two, and then gradually reduces as the body finds its footing with the new input. By week 4 or 5, if the habit genuinely suits your biology, the discomfort has largely resolved and what remains is benefit. Harm discomfort does not follow that curve. It may reduce slightly as the body compensates, which is what James experienced when his nausea reduced in week 3, but it does not resolve. It changes form. It moves from one symptom to another. It produces cascading effects in adjacent systems. And the longer it continues, the more the body has normalized the damage as baseline, making it harder to recognize the symptoms as symptoms at all. Margaret's bloating did not resolve by week 4. It got worse and spread to adjacent symptoms. James's nausea reduced, but gas appetite changes and antacid dependency appeared in its place. These were not adjustment curves. They were harm curves wearing the clothes of adjustment. The wellness world does not make this distinction clearly enough. Persistence is celebrated. Pushing through is praised. The people who quit early are the ones who didn't want it badly enough. This framing is not just unhelpful. In the context of health habits that cause real biological harm, it is dangerous. Your body does not get credit for endurance at the expense of function. Continuing a habit that is harming your digestive system because stopping feels like failure is not discipline. It is a different kind of failure dressed in discipline's clothing. Sarah, the one who made one small change that changed everything. Sarah was 44 and lived in Denver, Colorado. She worked as a physical therapist, which meant she spent her professional days observing what happens when people override what their bodies are, telling them in service of what they want to believe. She had watched patients push through pain they should have stopped at. She had watched people normalize dysfunction until the dysfunction became their baseline. She had a professional-level understanding of the difference between productive discomfort and counterproductive discomfort. She was interested in garlic milk for the same reasons Margaret was: the immune support, the cardiovascular benefits, the long history of garlic as medicine. She started the habit with one explicit rule she set for herself before the first morning. She was going to listen to her body's response with the same clinical attention she brought to her patients. Not dismiss what she felt as temporary. Not push through discomfort simply because pushing through felt like commitment. Just observe, honestly, what her body was saying in response to what she was giving it. Day 1. Slight burning in the stomach immediately after drinking. She noted it. Day 3. Mild bloating arriving about 40 minutes later. She noted it without alarm. Day 7. The bloating was consistent, not severe, but consistent enough that she recognized it as a pattern rather than an anomaly. She made her first adjustment. She reduced the amount of garlic she was using, half a clove instead of a full clove. The bloating reduced proportionally. Day 10. The reduced bloating was still present. She made a second adjustment. Rather than drinking the garlic milk on a completely empty stomach, she ate a small piece of toast first. Just one piece of plain toast. Just 2 or 3 minutes of eating before picking up the glass. The bloating disappeared. Not reduced. Disappeared. The toast had provided enough of a buffer, enough material in the stomach, enough of a shift in the gastric environment, that the allicin was no longer landing on bare, acid-soaked tissue. The milk alkali rebound still happened, but it happened against a stomach that has something in it, and the impact was absorbed rather than amplified. She kept the garlic milk. She kept the warm milk. She kept the full clove eventually, building back to it gradually over 2 weeks. She kept the toast. That was the entire modification. 2 or 3 minutes of a piece of plain toast before the morning drink. 6 months in, Sarah had the kind of winter she had been hoping for when she started. Fewer colds than the previous year. Consistently strong energy. Digestion that was smooth and unremarkable in the way good digestion always is. Her modification had cost her nothing. It had changed everything about how the habit affected her body. When a friend mentioned she was 3 weeks into the garlic milk habit and having bloating she was pushing through, Sarah told her what she had done. The friend made the same adjustment that day. The bloating resolved within a week. Sarah said the modification had taken 30 seconds to figure out once she started asking the right question. The right question was not how do I push through this? It was what is this telling me and how do I work with it instead of against it? A fourth person nobody usually hears from. There is a fourth person in this story who deserves a mention. Not someone who was harmed, not someone who struggled. Someone who did the garlic milk habit exactly as described, raw garlic, warm milk, empty stomach, first thing every morning, and experienced genuine benefit with no significant side effects. Her name was Gloria. She was 70 years old and lived next door to Margaret in Sacramento. She was the one who had suggested the habit in the first place. She had been doing it for 2 years and it had worked beautifully for her. Her digestion was excellent. Her immunity was strong. Her mornings started well. Gloria was not wrong. Gloria was not misinformed. Gloria had a digestive system that handled the morning garlic milk without the kind of gastric sensitivity that produced Margaret's symptoms. Her body processed the allicin and the milk alkali rebound without distress. The habit worked for her in a way habits sometimes work perfectly for some bodies and cause problems in others. The wellness information Gloria passed to Margaret was entirely true as it applied to Gloria. It was not complete as a universal instruction. And the gap between Gloria's experience and Margaret's experience was not a gap in willpower or commitment or the quality of the garlic. It was a gap in the biology of two different bodies with two different digestive systems responding to the same input. This is what wellness trends almost never account for. And it is why the same habit that transforms one person's health can quietly erode another person's health right up until the moment the erosion becomes undeniable. Where all three of them ended up. Margaret stopped the garlic milk after a conversation with her daughter who had noticed the digestive enzyme bottle and the lighter breakfasts and asked what was going on. 3 weeks without the morning drink and the bloating was gone. The heaviness was gone. She went back to her full breakfast and her morning walk. She started adding crushed garlic to her morning oatmeal with honey and a small amount of warm milk mixed in, garlic present, food buffer present, no empty stomach contact. Her stomach had no objection. She has done this every morning for 8 months. She feels better than she did before she ever started the original habit. James stopped and recovered and came away with something more valuable than whatever immunity benefit he had been chasing. He now has a clear and honest relationship with the difference between productive discomfort and counterproductive discomfort in his own body. He applies this understanding to his basketball coaching too, teaching his young players to distinguish between the discomfort of effort and the discomfort of injury. He says the garlic milk experiment taught him that lesson better than any theory ever had. Sarah continues her modified morning routine every single day. Toast. 2 minutes. Garlic milk. It has become as automatic as brushing her teeth. She never thinks about it. Her body has nothing to say about it because there's nothing to say. It works. It has always worked since the modification. She is the person in her friend group who knows the answer to the garlic milk question and gives it to anyone who asks with the same simple instruction. Toast first. Just 2 minutes. Then the drink. That is all. Before you go, garlic is medicinal. Warm milk has been used in health traditions for centuries. The research supporting garlic's cardiovascular and antimicrobial benefits is real and worth respecting. But natural does not mean universal. It does not mean one size fits all. It does not mean that pushing through discomfort is the correct response to every health habit that produces it. And it does not mean that a habit working beautifully for your neighbor will work the same way for you, in your body, with your digestive history, at your age, under your specific conditions. Before you commit to any morning health habit that produces discomfort, spend 2 honest weeks distinguishing between what is improving and what is getting worse. Make one small modification, a food buffer, a smaller dose, a slight timing adjustment, and observe what changes. Give your body something to tell you and listen clearly to what it says. The habit is not the goal. The health is the goal. And the health is personal. If this made you think about something you have been pushing through without fully questioning, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more content that looks at the whole picture of what your daily habits are doing inside you, not just the part that wellness trends want you to see. See you in the next one.